This will define everything about the St. Louis Blues as Jim Montgomery heads into next game with multiple players stepping up and one key player having the slowest start in recent years. This will define exactly what the St. Louis Blues need to do with their lineup moving forward, with multiple players showing out, and how Jim Montgomery is going to get this one key player back into form. We're going to break down all this and so much more in this episode. But before we get into it, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching. If you haven't hit the sub button yet, make sure to go down and hit it. Over 50% of you guys haven't subscribed yet. We're trying to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers, and we'll keep you up to date on everything that do around the St. Louis Blues daily. But with that, dears, let's go straight into it today, where we know the St. Louis Blues and Jim Montgomery have made a lot of changes to the lineup. Logan Mailloux going to the press box. We see multiple players moving up and down the lineup. And the big thing I want to touch on first is maybe we're going to see a Grown Ups 3 moving coming through as Adam Sandler is going to be attending the game. But serious, on a note, going into this game, we're seeing a lot of the same set lines. Now, going over the lines, there was a lot to like from a lot of players going through the lineup. We see 2 players full participants in practice as well, so we're going to get reinforcements. But before we dive into some specifics on this and everything around the team, what is your thoughts on Jim Montgomery? And we kind of alluded to it last episode, keeping the line together despite one line not working.
Well, first of all, Grown Ups 3 would be awesome. But personally, I'm looking for the sequel from 2019 for the St. Louis Blues. That's what I'm looking for this season. But obviously, no real changes. We do have some updates in terms of, guys who are injured are skating. And it looks like they're going to be returning soon. We covered that in another video. Toropchenko is still going to be out for a bit. Sundqvist should be returning soon. But I think the biggest storyline for the Blues right now is a guy in Robert Thomas, who is your first line center. You got to lean on him for that production to be that guy. And I don't think he's necessarily been horrible defensively, although maybe last game you could, make a case for that, or the last, couple of games ago. But now you got Dylan Holloway on the top line and Neighbors, and it didn't necessarily work the last game. We touched on that in a video as well, but this is a major test for the entire team heading into their next game. What does every line do, and what does every line bring to the table? Because some of the other lines have worked, and we've talked about, some of the pairings that they've put together. We know that Suter, and Snuggeroo, say that 10 times fast, do work as a pairing together, and Buchnevich playing with them has been playing very well. Maybe not putting up points, but he has been playing very well. He's using his size, he's using his frame, all of these things, and he's being pretty physical. So I like that line, right? And then you look at the third line. Kyrou finally got on the board last game as well. That's something to keep an eye on. Robert Thomas, to me, is the biggest question mark right now. Is it going to remain that way? I don't know, right? It's easy to say I don't know, but you would assume that no, it's not going to stay that way. And I hope it doesn't, Mark, because he's on my fantasy team and I really need him to get going. But I do eventually think he's going to get going and he's going to have a great season. But they are still playing musical chairs with the line. So it's going to be very interesting to see heading into next game. Do some of these lines, some of the magic that they found, does it stick? Do they stick with this lineup? Or do they look at the first line and go, clearly this isn't working, we got to try something else and go from there? I think it really depends on what happens next game, because the lines are still very much in the blender.
And I think the biggest thing with this team is looking at the expected goals for, and listen, we're a bit of nerds around here as well, but a lot of these lines are working really well. Putting Suter between anyone seems like to be a blessing in disguise, because those are the most productive lines. But I think getting that top line back in order is a big thing for Jim Montgomery. Now listen, one game, you had 3 lines rolling, one didn't work out as best as fans wanted, but this could be a bounce back. We're going to see them go into the next game with them looking for revenge. They want to produce. They want to be good. Jake Neighbors is having an incredible season. I mean, looking at the scoring, Jake Neighbors sitting number 1 at what, 23, 24 years old, coming through. A lot of the young guys are stepping up, but it falls back on this team still being really good without the veterans fully taking that big leap that we expect from them every single season. Now, going into this, from Blues Muse, we can see Robert Thomas so far, 5 games played, just under 19 minutes, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, a -2, and a low expected goals for on 5-on-5. His worst start to a season by points since 2019-20. Now, we love the word 2019, just throwing that out there, the number, whatever you want to say. Great year, but the biggest thing with Robert Thomas is I'm not worried. We know how productive he can be on both ends of the ice. He's going to be a player that's going to eventually reach 100 points. It could be this season if he goes on a heater. He's once again a player fighting to get into position to be named to Team Canada. where we know a lot of players are fighting because there's a lot of great talent. I mean, you know the players that are going to make it: Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, but Robert Thomas wants to prove a point, and he hasn't really done it within the first 5 games. I'm not hating on Thomas. I think he's one of the most underrated and underappreciated. Obviously, not the Blues fans, because we all agree he's incredible. But a lot of these guys are not appreciated by the fan base, and or not the fan base, other fan bases. Sorry, I'm in a blender. But Darius, looking at Robert Thomas, a bit of a slow start. Do you expect him to finally come out in one of these games, get it going, or do you think Jim Montgomery might have to switch up the lineup to bring back something that we have seen work in the past?
Well, Mark, hopefully you don't find yourself in Jim Montgomery's blender because you might end up on the fourth line because things are changing very rapidly right now. But Robert Thomas, right? We're not doing this to dump on him or anything like that. And let us know in the comments how you feel. Normally, personally, I think you got like 5 to 10 games to open a season where things are like, all right, we're kind of getting back in the rhythm here. We're gonna, get going here. A lot of guys start hot and then they cool off a little bit, right? So that 5 to 10 game range, I'm okay if you're not really going yet, but you got to show signs of something, right? So he's already entering that kind of range there where, we're at 5 games in now. We're about to be 6 games in now. Let's get going here. So he's got to show something. I said it in the offseason. He, is coming into this season with a chip on his shoulder. He wants to make that team. Doug Armstrong is the GM of that team as well. So, he's got that going for him. I'm not saying that he's going to just put him on the team because they know each other and he plays for his team. But, at the same time, you want to make a good impression, right? So far hasn't necessarily been doing that. So do the lines go back the way they were? I'm not so sure yet. I think they're going to continue to experiment and by way of running this because it worked last game. And we know that coaches are creatures of habit, and that does not exclude Jim Montgomery. So they're going to continue to run this. The third line looked good, right? In that last game, the second line looked good. So we'll see, right?
And I think that's the biggest thing. Looking at the lineup, there's a lot to like. And listen, just because Robert Thomas had a slow start to the year, we've seen it season after season, but I think this shows at least Jim Montgomery knows that they can mix and match the lines. If an injury does occur, we've seen Sundqvist miss the start of the year. Guys can step in. Texey, Joseph have shown flashes. Joseph and his speed is incredible to have in this lineup, but I do like the fact that Jim Montgomery is letting this continue to roll out, keeping that top line together. We know how productive Holloway and Thomas, some of the most exciting forwards on the team, and Jake Neighbors, an underratedly star in the making when looking at his production at the age. Fans, what is your thoughts on what is happening with the Blues? Are you expecting a 4.9? We might look silly, Darius, to even talk about this after he puts up a hat trick in his next game. What is your thoughts on Robert Thomas? Would you change the lines up, keep them together? Maybe you want to put him back with someone that he's used to in Snuggerud. We've seen it last season. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. And speaking of comments, let's go into comment today. Coming from Leo. First comment, please respond. Listen, we responded on YouTube, but we'll also put you as comment today. And if you want to be on comments of the day, make sure to go down and leave a comment below. We might not be able to answer every comment on YouTube, but we love reading through. You guys are awesome. We love the support. Once again, thank you so much, Blues fans. And if you made it this far, go down and comment 6-7 down in the comments, or 2019, whatever you want to comment. Just put one of them down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care, Blues fans.